episode 487 of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. I will be talking about tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite, featuring all the fallout from this past Sunday night's all-out pay-per-view and the beginning of the Grand Slam World Title Eliminator Tournament. Right here, right now, 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Hey, Wrestling Fanatics. Welcome to tonight's episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. It's Wednesday. You know what that means. It's time to talk about tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite. Like I said in that little preview there at the top of the podcast, tonight's Dynamite had all the fallout from last Sunday night's all-out huge pay-per-view event. And if for some reason you have not seen All Out yet, I definitely recommend ordering the replay. I know they have had two pay-per-views 2 weeks in a row, with All in London and then All Out this last Sunday night. But it is a fantastic wrestling show, great wrestling from top to bottom, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed. Tonight, Dynamite was live on TBS from Indianapolis, Indiana. Our commentators tonight, Tony Schiavone, Excalibur, and Taz. And we kick things off with the now former AEW International Champion, freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy, who comes out not to wrestle a match, but to cut a promo in front of the live crowd in Indianapolis. Which you don't hear OC talk a whole lot, but he said they told him that he didn't have to come to Dynamite tonight. And he thanked all the fans. And he said, because I am freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy and I do not have a catchphrase. Then as he was exiting the ring, going up the ramp, we hear Wild Things Start, which is the music of the new AEW International Champion, Jon Moxley. And nothing really happened here. Moxley does his usual entrance from the crowd. He gets in the ring, and OC does look back. But then he does go up the entrance and leave. And our opening contest tonight on All Elite Wrestling Dynamite for the AEW International Championship, Jon Moxley defending against AR Fox. As Orange Cassidy is leaving, AR Fox comes out with Darby Allin. Of course, Darby and Orange have teamed in the past, so they kind of stand there for a bit acknowledging each other. And then AR Fox goes to the ring alone, and our international championship match begins. Pretty good match here, I thought. It is Jon Moxley retaining, defeating AR Fox to retain the AEW International Championship in his first title defense. And then we see Darby Allin come back out. And then on the screen, we see Nick Wayne in the back. And then he is approached by Christian Cage and Luchasaurus. And Christian says he apologizes because last week when he said he didn't know that his father, Buddy Wayne, was a wrestler. He never seen him. And he said he went back and watched some of his stuff. And then he said something like he was even worse than he thought. And he told him to tell his mother he said hi. And then Christian and Luchasaurus walked away. And next up, we have an open challenge for the AEW TBS Championship. The champion, Kris Statlander, defending her title tonight against Emi Sakura. Pretty good match here. Kris Statlander retains with Wednesday Night Fever. Pretty good match here. I'd say 2.5 out of 5 ring bells. And for some reason, it seems like I always forget to rate a match. The Jon Moxley and AR Fox match, I'd give that 3 out of 5 ring bells. Bad memory. And next up we have tag team action. Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara, the Sex Gods, taking on Aussie Open. If you remember last week, Chris Jericho said that he wants him and Sammy Guevara to team up and go after the AEW World Tag Team Championships. And tonight, they are facing off against the former Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championships. Or World Tag Team Champions, Aussie Open. Pretty good tag team match here. There's some miscommunication between Jericho and Guevara, but they do get the win. Jericho pins Mark Davis. Pretty good match. I'd give it 3 out of 5 ring bells. And because of what happened at the finish of the match there, the miscommunications between Jericho and Guevara, they argue and then they get in a bit of a shoving match, and then Guevara leaves through the crowd. So this was their first match on their quest, I guess you could say, for the AEW World Tag Team titles, and they're already having some problems. I don't think this is the end of their team just yet. I'd say maybe next week on Dynamite they might patch things up and go at least for a little longer as a team. But we will just have to wait and see how long this partnership of the Sex Gods between Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara lasts. And next up we see the AEW World Champion and one half of the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, cuts a promo here, and then he brings up the shove from Samoa Joe last Sunday night at AEW All Out. And then we get Samoa Joe out, and MJF says the only reason Samoa Joe came out so fast because he thought his music sounded like an ice cream truck. And these two trade some insults back and forth. MJF actually brings up the time back in 2016 at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. At the time, Samoa Joe was the NXT champion, and MJF was used as security for that night, and he said Samoa Joe pushed him and just treated him like he was a kid. And again, MJF talked about his tryout story with William Regal, where he liked him, but he said he was just a little young, and he told him to email him every month to give him updates and stuff, and then Regal blew him off. And he says that he beat up William Regal and sent him back to NXT, and he said, Samoa Joe, you're next. And I thought this was a pretty good talking segment between MJF and Samoa Joe. MJF continues to be great on the mic. Samoa Joe was really good here too. But before it ends, or before they leave, I should say, Samoa Joe goes after the bat neck of MJF, which brings out referees and Adam Cole to check on his partner. So I'm guessing eventually we will see one-on-one match between MJF and Samoa Joe, or maybe could even see Samoa Joe get a tag team partner and maybe challenge Better Than You, baby, to a match for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles. I wouldn't doubt that happening. And next up, we have a match in the Grand Slam World Title Eliminator match where the winner of the tournament will receive an AEW World Championship match at Grand Slam in New York at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And it is Roderick Strong taking on Trent Beretta. Pretty good match here. The Kingdom is in the corner of Roderick Strong. Chuck Taylor in the corner of Trent Beretta. They have a pretty good match. I'll give it 2.5 out of 5 ring bells. So Roderick Strong advancing. And now Tony Schiavone is in the ring to talk to the winner of the AEW All Out 0 Hour Over the Budget Charity Battle Royal, Hangman Page. And Hangman talks about winning the Battle Royal, the charity, the Chicago Public School Fund that he chose the money to go to. And then he is interrupted by Swerve Strickland and Prince Nana. And Swerve gets in the ring and insults Hangman. Talks about him not having any new merchandise on the website in about the last year or so. But Swerve must not have seen now on Shop AEW there is a new exclusive Hangman Adam Page action figure by Jazzware. You must have missed that. And he continues to insult Hangman. And then Hangman goes to leave. He brings up his family. And then he goes in there to go after Swerve. But then he is attacked by Brian Cage. They leave Page Lane. And now it is time for the main event this week on AEW Dynamite. Interesting match. Darby Allin versus Nick Wayne. Before I get into this match, I just want to say that maybe it's just me, but I kind of thought that this might have been a little too soon to have Darby Allin back on TV. With All Out last Sunday, the way Darby was beaten down by the hands of Luchasaurus. He was beaten, laid out, about to get a concerto from Christian Cage. So maybe it would have been a little better maybe to keep him off TV for about at least a week or so to sell the injuries from that brutal match against Luchasaurus. But maybe I'm just being a little nitpicky here. And we have this match, Darby Allin versus Nick Wayne. I thought this was quite an entertaining match. And at one point, Darby even gets on the microphone, says, "You're hitting me like an 18-year-old. Hit me like a man." And I thought this was a very good main event. I'll give it 3.5 out of 5 ring bells. Darby Allin getting the win in this one to advance in the Grand Slam World Title Eliminator Tournament. And we will have more matches in the tournament this Saturday night on Collision. So that was tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite. I thought it was a very good show this week. Overall, I'll give it 7.5 out of 10 ring bells. Pretty solid show this week. After All Out this past Sunday night. And before I wrap up this episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, I'll talk some quick wrestling news. And unfortunately, there is sad news to report. General Adnan K. Singh has passed away. He was 84 years old. What I remember him most for when I was a kid, him and the Iron Sheik were managers of Sergeant Slaughter when he turned against America and had that heel run where he went up against Hogan at WrestleMania 7. Unfortunate news. Rest in peace to General Adnan K. Singh. And also, just saw a little bit ago that the man, Becky Lynch, will have to miss Superstar Spectacle. Sorry, probably said that wrong, but this Friday in India, due to a passport issue, and that looks like about all the news that I have for tonight's episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. If you have any questions or comments, or you can leave your feedback for tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite, or if you still want to leave your feedback for All Out, you can feel free. Remember that the social media, Instagram 360 Wrestling Podcast, on Twitter at 360 Wrestling Pod, and Facebook 360 Wrestling Podcast. I will try to have a new episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic tomorrow night, talking all about Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor on Honor Club. But first, be right here for Good Morning Wrestling fans, the Thursday episode. Once again, hope everybody had a great Wednesday. Hope everyone enjoyed AEW Dynamite tonight. Until tomorrow morning for GMWF, I am Lance and I am a wrestling fanatic.